All right. Did you need to marquee anything? We'll just make sure. All right, so the goal here, we gotta lay a three-dimensional object flat. Got it?
Yeah.
So I'm gonna start by separating the mesh, right? 'Cause it's gonna make it a little bit easier to work because right now it's one mesh. You don't have to, but I recommend it. So I'm gonna separate, mesh separate, all right? So you've already done the planar projection. So we have a couple objects already. So there's the handle, there's the blade, there's that little piece on the inside right there if I can click it, right? So I'm going to start with the blade, all right? So we'll just isolate that. One thing we could do is, you notice how it's red? If I click on this guy, I can actually turn it off in the viewport so I can just see the mesh, right? Having this turned on allows me to see if there's overlap. Right now there is, okay? So first things first, let's just cut this and then unfold it, right? Like a piece of origami, I'm just going to open it up and lay it flat. But I need to cut it first, right? So I'm just going to find an edge. So I'm going to double click there. And that edge just so happens, if I hit 4, it goes all the way around, right?
Yeah.
If I bring my cursor over here, hold shift, right click, cut. Right? You can do the same thing through all the tools under here or under the drop-down menu.
After you cut, you unfold it, correct?
Correct. I'm going to go ahead and unfold. Those are done. That's the blade. So if I move those over.
Are they supposed to be moved over? Because I know that everything is supposed to fit into the 0 to 1 space.
Everything needs to fit in 0 to 1 space. We'll get to that. We don't need to worry about that right now, right? We just need to get the mesh laid out, okay? So the blade is done. That took no time. So we're going to go straight to the handle, right?
Which probably takes longer.
Same idea. We need to get a couple cuts in there so we can lay it out flat, right? So over time, you'll start to kind of figure out the best places to cut it. Like I could technically cut it right down the center. Should I?
I mean, if it's easier because you have like larger things to work with.
So the goal should be the high texture seams. So we want to put it out of the way. So if we're UVing the face, look at me. We're not going to cut down the cheek, right? We're going to go right down the middle, or we're going to go behind the head and in the hairline where we can hide it. Okay? So, for instance...
So it would be best to stick to the side.
I'm just going to cut it on the side. There's a natural seam on the scraper blade. Shift, right click, cut. Now, a few other things are going to happen. So I'm going to actually just go ahead and unfold this. You'll see what happens. And it did something, right? It worked, but not quite as well as we had hoped, all right? So actually, if you look in really close right here, you can see that's the other side of the handle, right? So we actually need to cut here, right? We have to make sure that cut goes all the way around. Now, I could cut here on this bevel, or I could cut here. I'm just going to cut on the center.
Yeah.
So we'll cut here. And I'm going to go ahead and select this edge. So I double-clicked over here, so it grabbed me the edge ring, or the edge loop between the shells. So I'm going to cut right there by hitting V. And I'm also going to go ahead and cut out these sections, because these little areas are very difficult to unfold.
So you're selecting multiple parts, so to speak?
So you can see the lines are bold, so if I click on this icon right here, it'll actually tell me where those cuts are. Right? So I can use that to my advantage. If I turn on the checker, I can start to see where there's a lot of kind of deformation, right? These areas that deform a lot. We want a consistent checker across the mesh. So that if we have a consistent checker, that means we're not going to have a lot of stretching or distortion. So you can see how we get a lot of distortion here. It's because the inside of this is still connected. So we have to cut it out. That's the easiest way to resolve that. So I'm going to double click there. And again, just so happens, the way this was modeled, I get an edge loop that runs all the way through. So I'm going to bring my cursor over here, shift right click, cut. We'll do the same up here. Right, double click, G. We'll cut that out. Now we'll go back here and unfold. And that is done.
So now we have multiple parts to work with.
Oh my goodness. There we go. Chug it, chug it. There it goes. So there's the other one. It's just really small, right? But it's working, right? But take a look at the checker on this particular side. This side it's really large because of how small that is, so don't worry about that right now. But look how much better that checker's looking.
Yeah.
Right?
So
That's a good layout.
to make it small, wouldn't you just have to scale this up within? Or
Doesn't matter. The
it doesn't
checker
matter.
is irrelevant, right? So if I scale it up, yes, it's going to make the checker smaller, right?
Yeah.
But I can also change it here,
Oh,
okay? The checker, irrelevant. But we can use it to our advantage, right? We can still, it's still relevant in the fact that the checker is consistent across the entire mesh, which means the texel density is equal. But we're not going to worry about that right now, right? We're just going to keep on moving. So that's done. That was probably the hardest part, right? So we got this. I'm just
wouldn't
gonna,
that be best if you do like a cylindrical for that one, since it's cylinder shape?
yeah. So we're going to cut this, right? Because we can't unfold this right now.
Okay.
So cut, unfold,
Mm-hmm.
done. Right? So you can see the texture seam right there, but if you look at the rest of it, that's pretty good. A little bit of distortion, but not enough to warrant really a big concern. So we got this guy, same idea.
Yeah.
So we're going to actually just click here, right? That's that bevel, and it just so happens I can recognize that in 2D space here. So I'm just going to click there, double click there, cut, cut, unfold, done, right? And we have one more piece, this guy right here.
That's the metal piece. So when you get an object when you want an object by itself, you select it and then you just hit Control 1.
Yep.
To hide everything else that's not selected.
Yep.
And then Control 1 is what brings everything back.
Yep. Look at that. Cut, unfold, move, and sew. Those are the main tools I use.
Okay.
Alright.
And then when you want everything in the 0 to 1 space.
So now we'll worry about that, right? So I've got shells everywhere, right? So first things first, I want to make sure my texel density is even across my entire mesh. So if I isolate this, you can see I've got checkers that are different sizes. I need them consistent, right?
Yeah.
So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is select one of the shells that I like. I'm going to go to the transform rollout here, scroll down. I'm going to do the texel density tool. I'm going to click get. I'm going to select everything. I'm going to click set. And now everything should be consistent. So you can see the back was kind of larger, and now everything is the same size. Now, if I wanted to scale things up and down, I would do it uniformly. Right? At this point, I want everything uniform. Next, I need to get it in 0 to 1 space. I can use the layout tool. Check this. Go to the options. Unfold 3D is good. I'm going to change it from shell padding to pixels